Okay, so let's open up the online modeling lab 3 and then resume. And first question. And again, there's only 2 opportunities per answer box, right? Let me blow this up a little bit. Now, I'm bringing up price controls now because we've talked about surplus and shortages in chapter 3, right? So if the price is too high, right? If the price is too high, what do we have? Like down here. If the market price is, say, $5, quantity demanded is about what in my model? It's between 200 and 250, right? So maybe 230. And if the price, with the price being 5, the quantity demanded looks like about 70 or 80, right? So demand is pretty weak. We would say demand is weak. And there would be an excessive product inventory at grocery stores, right? Because you have all the supply and you don't have very much consumption, right? So you'd have really excessive inventory, right? So what do we call that when the inventory is excessive at these stores? What do you call that? A surplus or a shortage?
Surplus.
You call it a surplus, right? Now, if the price instead were like, say, $2, if firms were charging $2, right, then the demand would be high, right? So if the price were $2, the demand would be about 230, 240. But firms would only be supplying maybe 45, right? Now, what do we call that? Surplus or shortage. This would be the situation where you have, like, remember during the pandemic, you go to the grocery store, there's no paper towels. There's no toilet paper. There's no wipes, right? Those shelves were empty. That'd be a shortage, right? So we do talk about that in chapter 3, right? This is a situation where government dictates the price and sets it and then makes it illegal to charge prices above or below it, right? So it says this is the legal price. And it can create a shortage or a surplus, right? And this video here is a price support plan by politicians. They want to raise the prices of agricultural products that farmers sell. Now, if you raise the price of wheat for the farmers to benefit from that, what might happen to the price of bread that you buy at the store? It might go up, right? If bread makers have to pay more for the wheat that they grind into flour to make bread, because the government is buying surplus grain to drive the price up, then the bread that is baked from that wheat is going to cost more, right, to make. So these programs are actually quite common in the United States, and they've been around since World War One. Okay. So you can watch that video if you want. Let me just ask people on the Zoom: do you support politicians capping prices on goods they say are too expensive? Like if the price of oil or gasoline, for example, during a hurricane, anybody with a hurricane coming through North Carolina, did gas prices go up? Did you notice gas prices going up at all when the hurricane was coming through? Anybody? Nobody noticed gas prices going up? Well,
Yeah,
huh?
gas went back up the other week.
It went up during the hurricane, right?
Mhm.
What happened to anybody watch the news of Florida when the hurricane went through Florida? Did any prices go up, like bottled water or gasoline go up in Florida? Bottled water, plywood to cover one's homes, windows with. Typically, what happens during a hurricane is prices go up on the affected areas, right? And politicians will say people are gouging. North Carolina actually has a price gouging law. When I was living in North Carolina, back when I was tenured professor of economics in the department, I came across articles that would talk about how after the hurricane hit Raleigh, it wiped out the electrical system for about 10 days. And if there was gas at the gas companies, there's no way to get it out of the ground because there was no electricity. The pumps wouldn't pump it into your car. So there's basically no gasoline available. And a couple of brothers, I think, from Charlotte they rented a truck and they would fill the truck up with gasoline and they'd drive it to Raleigh and then they'd sell it for like $10 a gallon, right? Well, politicians took offense to that and they called it gouging. And I think they might have had him arrested, right? Now, for me, if I wanted to get out of Raleigh and I can't go to a gas station because there's no electricity and pump gas in my car, and then I need gasoline. If these two guys show up with a truck and want to sell me $10 in gas per gallon, I'd probably thank them for doing it because at least I can buy it, right? So this happens a lot when hurricanes hit, right? What about if so? There's price ceilings, right? In that video, we're talking about price ceilings, where price floors, where the price can't go below a certain level. In terms of gasoline, there's price caps. So the gasoline price is too expensive. Politicians will propose capping prices. In terms of agriculture, government has a history of putting a floor on prices, right? So this ties in really well with the surplus and shortage discussion in chapter 3. So what we're going to do is if you notice, there's already a Desmos.com model here. If you click on that, it'll open in a new website or a new browser tab. I'm going to pull it over here. And then you can see that I have some equations there, right? You can see I have some equations in there. I'm going to copy my equation for demand. And when I copy my equation for demand, I'm going to copy the 6.6 minus the 0.02. I'm going to just copy that part. I'm not going to copy the whole thing. And I'm going to paste it right on top of here. See that? Whoops. Actually, all I got to do is change the intercept. So I changed my intercept to 6.66. My slope is 0.02, right? And then I'm going to go down to my supply curve. My supply curve is 1.3. I'll just type it. 1.3, and the slope is 0.016, right? Okay, and then on this red thing right here, I'm gonna set that to equal to 0. Actually, I'm gonna set it equal to minus 10. I want to make it disappear. Okay. So I made the red line disappear. It's down here, right? It's below below 0. It's minus 10, right? Did everybody get their model set according to their numbers? Right? Everybody got that set? And we all have slightly different numbers. So we're gonna have different equilibrium price. We're gonna have a different equilibrium quantity. Did everybody get that set? We good? If you didn't, let me know if you weren't able to do it. Everybody can see my numbers. I have a big monitor, so my monitor's huge. So these things look really big to me, but they might look small to you. So if you didn't get your demand curve set, let me know. And then make sure you set the red line, y equal minus 10. Set it to y equal minus 10, all right? Okay, so this is the daily market demand and supply for burritos. I love bean burritos with onions. And they have a place in Utah called Del Taco. I love Del Taco. They have the best bean burritos. It's like a Taco Bell, but the burritos are better. The bean burritos are better. And I like the onions with the green chili sauce. Just love them, right? So I like burritos. I grew up in the West. I grew up in Oregon, and we ate lots of Mexican food. So in this particular model, we have the demand, which is modeled by this equation, and we have the supply, which is modeled by that equation. And because price is on the left side of the equation, right, in terms of Q, the price axis is the vertical axis. It's on the left of the numbers that are shown on the horizontal axis. So the horizontal axis is Q right here, right? Q. Now, to find the number of burritos that are supplied by firms and demanded by consumers, you can solve demand equal to supply, which I paste right here, right? This is the demand curve, and this is the right side of the supply curve, and I just set them equal to each other, and you can solve that for Q. Or you can use the Desmos model, right? That Q is this first value at this point. See, the cool thing about Desmos, it will find the equilibrium for you, right? The first number is the Q, the second number is the price. And you want to round all decimal values to 2, all values to 2 decimal places, right? So for me, my equilibrium quantity is 148.89. And you hit enter to see if you got it right. Cool. So I got my equilibrium quantity right, correct? Did anybody not get their equilibrium quantity? So econ is a very mathematical subject, but if you're good at like Desmos, you don't need to do the math. You can have Desmos do the math for you, right? Is that cool? Any questions so far? All right. Now I got to find the market clearing price, right? Well, I can substitute this quantity that I just found into here, or I can substitute it into here, or I can come over here and I can just type 148.889. Whoops, let me change that to Q. Capital Q. Notice what happens when I change this to capital Q. If I set capital Q equal to 148.889, this turns into a value, doesn't it? Desmos plugs this value of Q into this equation and gives you the equilibrium price, 368. 368, right? I'm going to change that back to X. Oops, lowercase x. Okay, notice when I change it back to lowercase x, it produces a dotted line that passes through the equilibrium, right? So my equilibrium price was what? Changing that back to capital Q, my equilibrium price is 368, right? 368. So burritos in my market cost $3.68. And did I get the correct answer? Yes, right? And notice the height of the intersection of demand and supply. It looks like, yeah, 368. And the quantity is just a little shy of 150, right? So this vertical line is 150, but the intersection in my graph is just to the left of 150. So that makes sense. And that makes sense, right? Any questions on that? We're all good?
Wait, how did you get this
Yep.
number again?
Jameer, what?
How did you get this number again? The $3.68?
Well, I can take this. Did you get the quantity?
Yes.
You could take the quantity and you could plug it into here, right? So you could take this 148.89 in my case, multiply 0.02, and then subtract that from 6.66, and you get 368. Or you can go over to Desmos, right? In Desmos, one way to get it in Desmos is to just click on the point of intersection. See that? Click on the point of intersection. That first number is my quantity. The second number is my price. Right? You got it?
Okay, got it. Thanks.
Okay, cool. Or you can change this. You can do this down here. Q equal to 148.889, right? Why did I do that? Because that's my equilibrium quantity to 3 decimal places, right? And both of these lines disappear and they produce a price, 368, right? So that's another way to do it. Okay, so there's a lot of different ways to get this number, right? Now, regarding the first burrito supply, right? If you look, this is the first burrito supply. Now, remember, Desmos is not an economic system. It's not an economic modeling system. It's a math system. So Q is on the x-axis and P is on the y-axis. So notice what I did here. I typed x equal -1. You see that? So if each consumer in this market buys one and only one burrito for lunch, big assumption, right? If each consumer, Lynn, can you close the door, please? Thank you. If each consumer only buys one burrito, right? Maybe they're big burritos, right? They're massive burritos. Some people are willing to pay more than others, right? We're not all identical. Some of us are rich and hungry. Some of us are rich and not hungry. Some of us are rich and want to eat only vegetables. Some people are poor and are hungry, right? We're all different. We're all unique, right? We're like snowflakes. There's no two snowflakes that are identical. Humans are like that. We're individuals. We have different income, different wants, different taste, right? So one way to think about a demand curve is that you put the richest, most hungry person on the demand curve furthest to the left, right? So this person here is got money and is hungry and loves burritos, right? What is that person willing to pay for that very first burrito? In my model, that person's willing to pay what? $6.64, right? Everybody see how I got that? This right here represents the very first burrito offered for sale, right? Now, of course, firms charge generally people the same price for the burrito, right? When you go to McDonald's, they don't say, well, you're LeBron James. We're going to charge you $15 for a Big Mac because you can afford it. And then charge me, who's an economics professor in New York, $4, right? Or $5, whatever it is now, right? They don't do that. There's one price, right? Typically in America, for a given market, there's one price, generally, right? In most things, there's one price, right? But some people are willing to pay a much higher price for that burrito, right? It makes sense? Think about the iPhone. When the iPhone is released in New York City, the brand new iPhone, they say it's going to be in stores on Thursday. What you might see in New York City at the iPhone store, the Apple store, or whatever they call it, near Central Park, you'll see people lined up for a week, right? Waiting for that iPhone to be delivered on Thursday, right? The person willing to pay the highest price is the first in line. The second person in line is willing to pay the second highest price because time is money, right? By standing in line for a week, you're giving up the opportunity to do other things like make money, right? Like earn money, right? So you can think of a line like the Duke UNC basketball game. When it's at Duke, what do people at Duke do? They camp out for a week and a half. Why? Because they want those tickets, and there's only so many of them. The first person in line is willing to pay the highest price, right? Because time is money, right? So you can think of this, if everybody pays the same price, you can think of the demand curve as being correlated with how long you would stand in line for that product, right? Okay, so that very first person in my model is willing to pay $6.64. Now, what are the firms willing to supply that first burrito? What are they willing to, what's the lowest price they're willing to accept for that first burrito, right? If you can only sell one burrito, right? Or if the price is low enough, what's going to happen to a lot of burrito makers? If the price is only $1.31, or in my case, $1.32, if that's the market price, maybe one firm is willing to supply a burrito at that price, right? And that firm would be a low-cost provider, right? McDonald's is a low-cost provider of hamburgers, right? Taco Bell is a low-cost provider of burritos. Nobody does it cheaper than Taco Bell. Nobody does it cheaper than McDonald's, right? They're the low-cost suppliers. Walmart is a low-cost supplier of groceries and apparel, right? Clothes. So you have these giant low-cost suppliers. They have economies of scale. Their production is so large that their per unit cost are tiny, right? So typically these firms on this part of the demand curve or on the supply curve are the low-cost suppliers. So the minimum price firms are willing to accept for that first burrito sold, in my case, is $1.32, right? $1.32. So did everybody get the correct answers there? All we're doing is we're making X equal 1 because we're supplying only one burrito at this point. And we're reading the price off the demand curve, and we're reading the price off the supply curve. Everybody got that? Any questions on that? No questions? Okay. Now, the price that is paid for this burrito is what? In my case, the price that is paid for this first burrito is $3.68. My market price, my model's market price. Okay, the one I put up here. Everybody got green check marks? If you don't have a green check mark, let me know, right? And this is how I think about demand and supply. So the book author thinks about demand and supply differently, but this is how I think about demand and supply. I think it makes more sense in a realistic way. Okay. Now, has anybody ever sold something to somebody? Or have you bought something from somebody that was on eBay? Have you ever sold something on eBay or bought something on eBay or gone to a yard sale and bought something at a yard sale or sold something at a yard sale, right? In Utah, there's a thing called KSL.com. It's Utah's version of Amazon. And if you want to sell something, you put it on KSL. Somebody's going to see it and want to buy it, right? I put an old wash machine on KSL. And I said, I wanted $100. I listed it at $100, right? And a person called and said, can I look at it? And I go, yeah. I had it set up in the garage and I had a water faucet, that hooks up to a hose. I had a water faucet running to the washer machine and I had it plugged into an extension cord and it was near the front of the garage door. So when he came over, I showed him that it worked, right? I pushed start, water went in it. I did a rinse cycle and it pumped water out. So I wanted him to make sure that he knew that it worked. Well, he goes, well, I'll give you $80 for it. And I countered, well, how about 90? And then he countered with 85 and we agreed on it, right? What happened there? You know, I was trying to find the maximum price he was willing to pay, and he was trying to find the lowest price I was willing to sell it for, right? Now, he doesn't know what my lowest price I'm willing to sell it for is. And I don't know what his highest price he's willing to pay for it, right? I do know that because he came over, he was probably willing to pay $100 for it, right? But at the same time, I was probably willing to accept $40 for it, right? And we agreed on something like 85, right? Did both of us win? We both won, right? Because the price we agreed on was great for me and was great for him. He was willing to pay more than that, and I was willing to accept less than that. So we both won in that transaction. Nobody lost. We both won. When transactions are voluntary, both people win. So in this case, the consumer surplus is what? Now, the cool thing about Desmos is you can use it as a calculator. What was that first consumer willing to pay? Well, he was willing to pay $664, right? What did that first consumer pay? The market price, in my case, $368, right? So the consumer surplus of that first consumer is 2.96. You got it? So all I did is I took this number and subtracted off that number, right? So whatever your number is here and your number is here, you take that difference and you get the first consumer surplus. Oh, this should be firm surplus right here, first firm surplus. Let me edit that. Okay, so the first firm surplus, to calculate the first firm surplus, you take the market price that the firm gets. Whoops. My market price is $368, right? And you subtract off what the firms would be willing to accept. In my case, $1.32. So the firm surplus, the first firm surplus is $236. Now, when I hit enter, what I like about MyOpenMath is I can make an edit and it inserts that word firm right there, right? So the first firm surplus is $236. Does everybody have that? So the firm surplus is this subtracted from the market price. The first consumer surplus is the price that first consumer is willing to pay minus the market price. Does everybody have green check marks? Is there anybody that doesn't have a green check mark there?
I know.
Who's that?
From mine, this is
Madison?
Madison from mine. Yes.
Okay, so what is your market? What is your market price right here?
It's 3.18.
3.18. And then what is your the price the first consumer's willing to pay?
It is 6.78.
So yours is 6.78 minus 318.
Yes, sir.
So should be 360 right there, right?
Okay, I'm about to put it in.
Okay. Did it work? Oh, you're muted.
I'm sorry. For the first consumer surplus, yes, it did work.
Okay, good. So now, what about the first firm surplus?
When I put it in, it said it was wrong. So,
Okay, so your market price is 318, right?
yes. Subtract
What is the price that firms are willing to accept at that quantity?
0.62.
0.62. So it should be 256 right here for you.
Yeah, and it said it was wrong.
Okay, so let me see your screen. Can you share your screen?
Yes, let me see.
Okay. Is that wait, that's my screen. Should be able to share it. Do you have a Mac or a PC?
I'm sorry, I was muted. I have a Mac. Did you see it?
I haven't seen it yet.
Do you see it now?
No.
Okay, let me do it again.
You're the one from Haiti?
No,
Oh, but Baudoin, your last name? Is that French?
that's yes, French.
Okay. When I see a French name like that, I sometimes think Haiti. Okay, did you click the share screen button?
It's not working. I'm so sorry.
Oh, do you have to unlock it in your Mac? Let me do this. Let me go to the grade book in Math.
Let me try now.
Oh,
Do
there you
you
go.
see it now?
Yeah. Oh,
Okay.
I did, but it went away. Oh, wait a minute. Here it is. Wait a minute. Oh, that's weird. Let's do this. Okay, there it is. Okay, good. Let me do this instead. I got the grade book here. I got your version open. I'm going to share the screen that shows your work instead. Okay, do you see the Larry Lee Sanders meet with Agriculture Secretary video on your screen?
Yes.
Okay. So down here, let's see, 6.8, 0.21. And then down here, 5 and 0.6. Okay, so your market price is 318. Your price that consumers are willing to pay is 678. Firms are willing to accept. Oh, try changing that to 0.61.
Oh,
Change.
it won't let me because I did it twice.
Oh, yeah. Well, that number's correct actually. And then, yeah, I think it's just a round off error, so it should be 257. Yeah, I think it's a round off error there. I don't know why it's coming up like that.
It
Change the first firm surplus to 257.
it works. Thank you.
Okay, good. All right, cool. All right. Let me go back to what mine was. Mine was 6.6. Yeah, there's some round off errors in Math that I haven't been able to fix. 1.3. Okay, so now the second burrito supply. We're going to change. Let me get rid of this. We're going to change this x equal 1 to x equal 2. Right now we're talking about the second person in line, or the second person, the person with the second highest willingness to pay. Right? What is that person willing to pay? In my model, that person is willing to pay 6.62. $6 and 62 cents, right? They're not first in line, they're second in line, right? And then the minimum price firms are willing to accept to produce that second sell and produce that second burrito, in my case, is $1.33, right? See that? $1.33. Okay. And then all I have to do is change this right here, 664, change that to 662, and change this to 133, right? Now, that second burrito still only cost $3.68, right? Remember, my market clearing price is $3.68. So even though firms' lowest price they're willing to accept is higher, and the maximum price the consumers want to pay is lower, the price that second consumer pays is still the market price, right? $3.68. So this number doesn't change, right? That's the market price. The price is the price. Any Taken fans? Liam Neeson, special ops guy with skills. He's trying to negotiate a price in France to get to put a bug on one of the pimps from Albania, right? And the Albanian says the price is the price. The price doesn't change, right? $3.68. The second consumer surplus in my model is $2.94, right? And I got that again by taking that second consumer's maximum price they're willing to pay, subtracting off the market price, and then I do the same, but with the market price in my model minus the minimum price firms are willing to accept to supply that second burrito, and that's $2.35. Okay. Everybody got green check marks?
Can you go over the second consumer is willing to pay again just one more time?
Yeah. I changed the X equal 2. See how I changed the X equal 2? Or X equal 1 to X equal 2? Right there, right? Did you do that in Desmos?
I got it now. Thank you so much.
Okay, good. All right, sweet. Now, I'm going to let you guys do the third burrito supplied. I'm going to do it without talking. You guys do the third consumer surplus and the third firm surplus of the third burrito supplied. Okay? I'm going to do it without talking. Oh, I love the green check marks. Was everybody able to get 5 new green check marks?
I have a question.
Yeah. Kayla?
So, yeah, I was a little late. Will you be uploading this evening so I can rewind and go back to everything that you were saying?
Yes, it will be uploaded
Okay.
tonight. But you can continue doing the problem, right? Well, while everybody else is getting this done, we'll go back. Did you click on this right here?
No, not yet.
Yeah, if you want to click on that, you can click on that right now. And then what you want to do is you want to make sure your numbers match the model numbers. See, my numbers right here match my demand curve, and these numbers match my supply curve. See that?
Yeah.
And then you want to set the y equal like 5 or whatever it is to minus 10 because you want it to disappear.
Okay.
And
So
all we're
type
doing
the
is, yeah, all we're doing is we're changing the value of x equal 3, right? We're changing that value from x equal 1 to x equal 2 to x equal 3.
okay.
And then the video will be uploaded, right? Video will be uploaded. Okay, did everybody get the third burrito done? Anybody not get it done? Feels good to get those green check marks, right? See, in this method, you can't just write what I write on a piece of paper and look out the window. That happened a lot last year at Alliance University. I'd say something in class and people would look out the window. They weren't engaged, right? This requires you to be engaged, to be thinking, right? You can't just write what I write, right? Unless you, by chance, get the same exact problem I get. But the probability of that is really, really low. All right, so regarding the marginal consumer and the marginal buyer, who's the marginal buyer and who's the marginal supplier? Well, that is out here. The marginal consumer is the consumer that is willing to pay exactly the market price. They're actually indifferent between buying and not buying. And the reason why they're indifferent is because the maximum they're willing to pay is the market price. This person is willing to pay $368, right? And the market price happens to be $368. They're indifferent. There is no gain for them engaging in this transaction. So the marginal consumer is way out here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put X at my 3 decimal market quantity. My 3 decimal market quantity is 148.889 right here. So if this were in if this was in thousands, then there'd be 148,888 consumers in this market. You can think of maybe this is in thousands, right? So the marginal consumer, if that were the case, would be the 148,889 customer, right? That would be the marginal consumer. And the reason why I say that is because the market price is 368, right? The market price is 368. That's the price that that consumer pays. And that consumer is willing to pay 368, right? And that consumer surplus is $0. So there's no gain. Whoop. Oh, $3.68. Sorry, I forgot the decimals. Don't do what I do. Don't do what I just did and free the decimal place. Fortunately, there's 2 tries per answer box, right? So this is the marginal consumer. They're willing to pay up to $368, and that's exactly the price they pay for it. So in a sense, they're kind of indifferent, right? Between buying and not buying, right? What about the marginal firm? Well, the marginal firm is willing to accept $3.68, right? Because that's the value on the supply curve, right? The value on the supply curve is 368. So the marginal firm is willing to accept 368 to supply, in my case, that 148.8889 burritos, right? The market price is 368. So the marginal firm surplus is 0, right? That's how you know you're the marginal consumer or the marginal firm, right? You're indifferent between engaging in the commerce and not, right? Any questions on that? Okay, I'm going to change this X. I'm going to change it to Y. And then I'm going to change this to the price, 368. Notice what happened there. The line went horizontal, right? You see that? The line went horizontal. So this is my market price. And guess what? It goes through the intersection, right? See that? That dotted line, now that dotted line now goes through the intersection of demand and supply, right? What do we call this triangle up here? Anybody? Can anybody guess what we call this triangle up here? The answer is on this page somewhere. What do you think we call this triangle? It's the gains in trade that accrue to the consumers. What do we call that?
Surplus.
What kind of surplus?
Marginal.
Well, the marginal consumer's here, right? There's only one marginal consumer.
Consumer.
Consumer surplus, right? Because that first consumer is willing to pay the highest price, but only has to pay the market price, right? The second consumer is willing to pay the second highest price, but only has to pay the market price, et cetera, right? Think about the vertical heights, right? So one way to calculate total consumer surplus is to take the length of this line segment, right? Which is, in my case, 148.889, and then multiply by the length of this line segment, right? Which is roughly, in my case, 664, right? So we can take the height of this triangle and multiply by the width of the triangle, and then divide by 2, and that's what I do right here, right? If you take the height of this triangle, 368, minus the intercept, 666 in my case, right? So you don't have to do this. I'll just show you. The height of my consumer surplus triangle is 6.66, minus the market price of 368, right? I'm going to multiply that by the width of the triangle. And the width of the triangle is the quantity here, right? In my case, 148.89. And then it's a triangle, so I got to divide by 2. You don't have to do this. I already did it for you. My consumer surplus, well, I guess that what I did is I did it that way. That's weird. Again, there's a round off error, right? Oh, that's right. So I used 148.89. When I round this to 2 decimal places, I get 0.84 or 0.85, right? That's how I got that right there, right? That right there is the consumer surplus, this triangle up here, the upper triangle, right? So the triangle that's between the vertical axis, the equilibrium price, and the demand curve. This triangle here is consumer surplus, right? And then to get the firm surplus, right? The firm surplus is the market price, right? The difference between the market price and the intercept of the supply curve. In my case, the intercept of the supply curve is 1.3. Again, you don't have to do this. I'm doing it for you, right? So the market price is, in my case, 368. My intercept of my supply curve is 1.3, right? And again, I multiply that by the quantity, and then it's a triangle, so I got to divide by 2. And I get 177.18. See that? So this is the firm surplus, and that's the consumer surplus. And together, they're the gains in trade of the gains in trade of the consumers and firms who are voluntarily engaging in this trade. Consumers win, firms win. Both win, right? Now, the efficiency argument is the argument that free market people tend to make. They say, let the free market work. If you let the free market work, you have the surplus or the gains in trade or the benefits to trade that accrue to the consumers and the firms are maximized. That's the efficiency argument, right? So if consumer surplus measures the total benefit that accrues to consumers for voluntarily participate in this market, and firms surplus measures the benefit that accrues to firms for voluntarily participate in this market, the total benefit to the firms is maximized when the quantity of burritos equals what? What's the quantity of burritos out here? In my case, the quantity of burritos is 148.89, right? So that's just your market quantity, right? That's just your market quantity, right? It's just this value right here. So whatever you put right there is what you put here. Okay? And the total benefit to buyers and firms equals what? Well, that you're summing this entire triangle from up here to down here to here, right? You're summing this triangle, this big triangle. You're adding the firm surplus or the consumer surplus to the firm surplus. Well, how do you do that? Well, I give you the numbers here, right? I give you the numbers. So I'm just going to copy that whole thing into Desmos. I'm going to replace all these characters with a oops. Okay, I guess I'll just type it. 221.85. So I'm taking this 221.85, which is the consumer surplus, this upper triangle, and I'm added to the lower triangle area, 177.18. And I get 399.03. Oh man, those green check marks are awesome. Efficiency is achieved when the demand price and the supply price both equal what? Well, that's your market price. This is efficiency. You want the market to set the price. You don't need any government intervention in this efficiency argument, right? The market will set the price. The marginal consumer and the marginal firm agree on the market price. So the efficiency is achieved when the demand price and the supply price both. No, notice right here. When I change this back to X, and I change this to say 5, is the demand price up here equal to the supply price down here? No, right? If I change this to 50, is the demand price equal to the supply price? No. If I change this to 100, is the demand price equal to the supply price? No. Where does the demand price equal the supply price? At the market equilibrium, right? When quantity is 148.89 in my case. Now the demand price equals the supply price. And for me, that's 368. And the quantity demanded and quantity supplied both equal that 148.89. Let me change this to Y and change this to 2. Okay, so when the price is 2, you can't see it. When the price is 2, does the quantity demanded or supplied equal the quantity demanded? No, right? If the price were 3, is the quantity supplied equal to the quantity demanded? No. If the price were 4, is the quantity demanded equal to quantity supplied? No. Where does quantity demand equal quantity supplied? At the market price, in my case, 368, right? At the market price, quantity demand and quantity supplied equal each other, right? So total surplus cannot get bigger than it is when we're at the market equilibrium. That's when total surplus is maximized. And we call that efficiency. So a person who's arguing for free markets is making the efficiency argument. All right, everybody understand that? So this problem overlaps a lot of chapters, right? This overlaps a lot of chapters, okay? Because it's how I look at economics. It's how I look at it, right? The author of the textbook has a different view of economics. And there's many different views of economics. There's feminist economics. There's Marxist economics. There's some related value theory of labor economists. There are neoclassical economists. There are Keynesian economists. There are post-Keynesian economists. There are Austrian economists that don't believe in mathematical modeling at all, right? So there's all kinds of economists. And I have a view of economics that is different than the textbook. And I think my view, the reason why I hold these views is because I think it models reality better, right? Okay, any questions on that? Was everybody able to get the answers for those? Anybody not get the answers? I know we're going over a little bit. We're almost done. Trust me, we're almost done. If you can hang in there for a second, for 5 minutes. Anybody not get the green check marks at this point? Okay, the silence means everybody got the green check mark so far, right? If you didn't get a green check mark, don't guess. Buzz me. I'll open up your version of it in Gradebook, and it'll probably be a rounding error, right? I still haven't been able to fix the rounding errors in my open math, right? So if you got something wrong, don't change it until you talk to me, okay? Now, suppose politicians say the market clearing price is too high because poor people cannot afford $3.68 per burrito. Now, where have you heard this argument before? Not in terms of burritos, but where else have you heard this argument? Do you think the tuition you pay is market priced? Is the tuition that you pay at A&T State University the market price for tuition?
No.
No, it's not. In New York, if you're in a family where the household income is below $125,000, the price of tuition at a SUNY or a CUNY college is zero. There's fees, there's books, right? I think maybe they're included, but yeah, essentially it's at zero, right? They've capped the price at zero for people whose household income, or families whose household income is below $125,000, right? So the government does this a lot. They set the price, right? So there's a lot of energy is another one, right? When you see brownouts in California, a brownout is just a shortage. It means the government set price, the government approved price is too low, and you have lots of demand and little supply, and you get a blackout or a brownout. So there's all kinds of price controls everywhere in our economy. People say we're a free market economy. I say we're not. There's all kinds of price controls. And it varies from state to state. And the minimum wage is an example of one too, right? It's a minimum wage, right? Okay, so suppose the politicians say the market clearing price is too high because poor people cannot afford $3.68. If the government caps the price of burritos at $2.48, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this X equal -5, so it disappears. Maybe I'll make it X equal -500. There it goes. Now it's disappeared. Now here, the government caps the price at $2.48. Your cap is going to be different than my cap. I'm going to set Y equal 2.48. You see that? So I set Y here with, equation 3 here, the red, Y equal 2.48, because that's my price cap. Government caps the price of burritos at 248, right? So that's why I changed that to 248. And notice this red line is below the intersection, right? It would be illegal to sell burritos for a price that is above this. Whoops. They did this substantially in Venezuela. These price caps caused gas shortages in Egypt. They cause bread shortages in Venezuela, Venezuela. Governments do this all the time, and they create shortages. Right? Now, notice when I did that, what happened to my model? Oh, that's cool. You see that? Entering that value put my price floor in my model, right? Or price ceiling. It put my price ceiling in my model, right? When you enter that value right there, right? So my graphs look the same, don't they? Right? Okay, now what happened in this situation? When the price ceiling is imposed, what is the quantity supplied? Right? Well, this right here, what is this right here? The intersection of the price cap and the supply curve is the quantity supplied, right? So in my model, how much are firms supplying? 73.75 burritos, right? You see that? So I'm on the red line and I clicked on the supply curve, the intersection point, and I get 73.75, right? That's how much firms are supplying. How much do people want to buy? Well, that's out here. This is quantity demanded, right? Quantity demanded in my model is 209. What do we have here? What does chapter 3 call this? What does chapter 3 call this situation? Which one do you think it is?
A shortage.
A shortage, right? So this policy creates a shortage, right? So now I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in the X equal here. I'm going to bring in the X equal, and I'm going to set it equal to my supply here, right? 73.75. What happened to my thing? It's supposed to be dashed. There it goes. Okay, so at this quantity supplied, right? Notice that the highest price the last customer in the market is willing to pay is now $5.18. Can poor people afford to pay that price? No, rich people can afford to pay that price, right? This is what is supplied, right? And that 74th customer, roughly, is willing to pay $5.18 for it, right? But they only have to pay the $2.48, right? Before they had to pay $3.68. So this rich person, right? This rich person is willing to pay $5.18, but only has to pay $2.48, right? What happened to the middle income people? You can think of the people between on the line segment here on the demand curve. You can think of them as middle income people. What happened to them? Well, they can't buy the burrito because only 73.75 are supplied, right, in my model. So this eliminates middle income people from purchasing burritos in this market. The poor people that this policy was intended to help populate this part of the demand curve, right? They weren't able to buy the burritos before the price ceiling. They're not able to buy the burritos after the price ceiling. The middle income people that populate the demand curve here are now unable to buy the burrito, right? They were buying the burritos before. Now they're unable to buy the burritos. Only rich people are able to buy the burritos because they have the highest willingness to pay. In Venezuela, when this happened a few years ago, rich people paid poor people to stand in line for them, right? Why? Because rich people are willing to pay more money and are able to pay more money. So poor people made money by standing in line at the grocery store to buy products for rich people. So who benefits from this? Rich people don't have to go to the store anymore, right? They have poor people delivering food to them that the poor people can't eat, right? Because they can't afford the prices, right? You can also think of this difference as being the bribe, right? You can think of this as being the bribe. So maybe poor people buy the food, but what do rich people do? They in turn buy it from them, right? Or maybe they just bribe the store owner, or they pay poor people to stand in line for them, right? The equity intervention does what to total surplus? Well, this commerce doesn't happen anymore. This is lost commerce, this triangle here, right? The triangle on the right here, that's lost commerce. What is this trapezoid? What is this trapezoid here? What do we call that trapezoid? Trapezoid is a rectangle with a triangle on top, right? What do we call this trapezoid? The first rich person is willing to pay $666, right? The last rich person is willing to pay $519. All these people only have to pay $248. What do we call this trapezoid? We call it consumer surplus, but it's really rich person consumer surplus. And their consumer surplus increased as a result of this policy. It was this smaller trapezoid. Now it's this bigger trapezoid. So this policy actually benefits the rich. And it harms the middle income people. It harms middle income people. They lose surplus. And it has no effect on poor people. They weren't able to buy the product before. They're not able to buy the product after, right? So we call it consumer. Oh, sorry. The equity intervention decreases total surplus, right? It decreases total surplus by this triangle here. It decreases total surplus by that triangle, right? But the effect is it has no effect on the poor. They can't buy the burrito before or after. It eliminates middle income people from buying burritos. And it benefits the rich because they're the ones able to afford, or they're the ones able to bribe or pay people to stand in line for them. And their surplus increases. Okay. Now, suppose instead politicians say the market clearing price is too low because poor suppliers cannot earn enough money from the sale of their burritos at $3.68. This is the situation in this video. Suppliers of grain, farmers, will go bankrupt unless the government raises the price of grain artificially, right? So this is on the supplier side. Suppose politicians say that the market clearing price is too low because poor suppliers cannot earn enough money from the sale of their burritos at $3.68. The government enacts a price floor on burritos of $5.18, right? $5.18. I'm going to change this to $5.18. Okay. I'm going to change this to $5.18. Notice what happens. Now I have a price floor. Prices, you cannot sell below this green line. It's illegal. In Venezuela, if you sold below the price floor, you could be thrown in jail, right? what happened here? Oh, I messed up my problem. I have a divide in there. I can't change that. Yeah, I did divide and I didn't put an answer. Okay, that's all right. So when you put that 518 in there, it erases the price ceiling and imposes a price floor. Now prices aren't allowed to go below this line, right? So what is the effect of this? When the price floor is imposed, what happened? I'll change this to green. Okay, so when the price floor is imposed, let me make this minus 500 again. When the price floor is imposed, what's my quantity supplied? Well, my quantity demanded is 74. My quantity supplied is out here on the supply curve, right? So my quantity supplied is 242.5. And my quantity demanded, the price floor goes first through the demand curve. My quantity demanded is 74, right? What do we call this situation in chapter 3? We call it a what? A surplus, right? We have 242.5 burritos produced and supplied, but only 74 are demanded. This actually happens in the United States. In the 1980s, the government put a price floor on milk. And so what did dairy farmers do? They produced a heck of a lot of milk. And because that caused the price to go up, quantity demanded of milk went down. So in order to enforce the price support, this particular one, the government had to buy the milk. It would buy the milk. And it bought so much milk, it had to dehydrate it or to go bad, right? Milk goes bad. So it dehydrated the milk. And it had dehydrated so much milk, it didn't know what to do with it. So it decided to give it to South American poor countries. What do you think happened when it gave all that dehydrated milk to South American poor countries? What did the local dairy farmer do when the government of the United States is giving away free milk? What did poor people in these poor countries do? They didn't buy the milk from the dairy farmer locally. They bought it for $0 from the United States government. What do you think happened to dairy farmers in South America? Well, they went out of business. They butchered their goats. They butchered their cows because they couldn't compete with a zero price from the United States. And so when the United States stopped giving that free milk to South American countries, it caused even worse famine. Because now, once the government stops giving that free milk away, there's no industry left because they decimated that industry, right? So that didn't work. But they still had this surplus of milk. So they decided to put it in the current milk supply, and they made the milk thicker. And government thought, well, people will like thicker milk. Well, people didn't like thicker milk. So that didn't work. And so they decided to kill cows. They paid farmers money to kill cows. Now, which cows do you think the farmers killed? The ones that were older and not producing milk. The ones that they were going to kill anyway. Right? So that had no effect on milk supply. And the last thing they did is they just dumped it in the ocean. Right? They had so much of it, they just dumped it in the ocean. During FDR's price supports of the Great Depression, it was common for farmers just to burn crops in the field. Government was out there burning crops in the field because they had imposed these price floors. Meanwhile, people in the cities were starving and were lined up at soup kitchens. In Haiti, when that devastating earthquake happened, in Haiti, the federal government gave Haiti a bunch of free rice. Well, what happened to the rice farmers in Haiti? Well, they couldn't compete with free rice, right? So a lot of them just closed up, and it caused unemployment. They had to lay off their farm workers, and those laid off farm workers went into the cities and caused city unemployment to go up. right? So this benevolence, I mean, it feels good to give, but when you give a poor country a bunch of free milk, it decimates the dairy industry, the local dairy industry. And when that free milk dries up, pun intended, when it stops being given away for free, there's no dairy industry left because it's been decimated. The local dairy farmers had to sell and butcher their cows and goats. So, hey, I sympathize with the intent, but a lot of times good intentions have really negative consequences. Oh yeah, we got to go. Yeah. All right. So this equity intervention does what? It decreases total surplus. Why? For the same reason as it did before. Only 74 burritos are purchased, right? And so we have all this lost. This triangle here represents the losses that accrued to the consumers and firms, because consumers are only willing to purchase 74 of them, right? So these are lost transactions. And this triangle is called deadweight loss, right? This right here is the consumer surplus, and this trapezoid below this green line is called the firm surplus. So firms gain, farmers gain in this. But notice, not all farmers gain. These are the marginal farmers. These are the poor farmers that the policy was intended to help. These are the corporate farmers. The corporate farmers, the big operations, benefit from these policies. And if you look at the firm concentration during the milk support systems, it benefited the massive dairy farms because it eliminated from production the higher cost, smaller family farms. So the policy was intended to help the poor, small family farm. It put them out of business, and it made the big corporate farmers more powerful. So who do you think was in favor of this policy? The big corporate farms, right? Because they know that they benefit from these price supports, right? All right, so we're done. Hopefully we got 100%. If you have any questions, I got to get going to a parent-teacher conference, and I'm 30 minutes over, so I apologize for that. I digress quite a bit, if you've noticed. But I'll post this video, and if you have any questions, email me, and I'll try to answer them before the night is over. Okay? But I got to roll right now. Any real quick questions before I go? Any quick questions? Are we good? All right.
Yeah.
Have a good night, and email me if you have any questions, all right?
All right, thank you.
All right, have a good night. Bye.